What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy. Okay, so we're back with another episode of Ishizu Tears. Today I want to do a sample deck recipe and some quick little basic combos. So, diving right in, start off with the 3 Agido for the Ishizus, 3 Kelbeck, 3 Keldo, and then 3 Midora. So the standard lineup obviously is just like playing the 12 of them. I think you can go down on this card just because it's not as impactful. Obviously the in-hand effect being able to summon as an extender and then summon back another fairy is all right, but half the time, because this deck doesn't really play a lot of good link monsters because there's just no space, so it's just like not as useful as Kelbeck, which can also be used as a hand trap during your opponent's turn in the mirror match especially. So when an opponent sends any card from their hand or their deck to their graveyard, aka milling with any of their tier effects. For example, if they use Sheeran, chain link 1, and then resolve it by milling 3 on the resolution of the chain, you can actually chain this to bounce their Sheeran so they can't make Abyss Dweller easily, for example. Or if they maybe had a way to make Kick Hellos first with Instant Fusion or something, and then they activate a Sheeran after that, you can actually activate Kelbeck to return the Kick Hellos, which can be pretty detrimental to their combo. So yeah, this card is a hand trap extender. I think is a lot better than Agido, which just gives you 2 level 4s, which is still all right. Like you can summon Dweller or whatnot, but just like because these cards you don't want to mill in the mirror match, they can also be dead draws or just like dead mills. So a lot of times it's probably just correct to side out multiple copies, just so you're not going to be using these in the mirror match unless you're under Dweller, unless you have Dweller set up. So yeah, good thing to note. And then also the 4 Bestials. I think these cards are really good as extenders because they are level 4, or level 6 rather. You can make Beatrice really easily, obviously with Garuda being a level 6 as well, or 2 copies of this. Actually, on your turn, if you go Magnamute and Phase Search Druidworm, you already have 2 level 6 bodies, so it's really easy to make Beatrice. It's also can be paired with Herald, Diviner the Herald to make a Baron if you send like another copy of Herald of Orange Light using Diviner, which speaking of Herald of Orange Light being a hand trap, it's super, super good. It does brick sometimes, especially if you play a lower fairy count. Like if you're cutting down on these and you're not playing Diviner the Herald, it can be kind of bad. But this obviously being the same power level as Gamma, but not having like any drawbacks besides having to have another fairy is super powerful. In the non-mirror match, for example, if you're playing against Sprite, this just becomes so degenerate with either copies of this because you could just, like, if they go like blue effect, you can go Herald Orange Light, discard Kelbeck, discard Agido, and then you're milling like 5 cards on top of that. So you destroyed their monster and you're starting to mill and get into your engine, which is kind of insane. I think this card is really good. Also, being able to negate super power cards like D-Shifter is just like an added bonus. Diviner, we play this because you can obviously send these to mill 5. It's obviously not that good in the mirror match, to be honest. You don't really want to draw this. And like the extra deck is so tight, there's no space for Entis either. You could technically play it, but I don't know. You'd have to cut one of these like flex cards, which I don't think is as good just because it doesn't come up. But this card is really, really neat in that you can modulate your level. So obviously sending either of these or any of these, in fact, can make this a level 6. So you can make Beatrice with Garuda or with Magnamut. And then obviously being a tuner, you can actually a lot of times in your combo, if you decide to go Rukalos first to play around Nibiru, you can actually make Dweller and then make Elf and revive this and make a Baron with an 8 and a 2, just so you are out of super poly range. Because obviously having Dweller and Rukalos is never good because they can go turn player priority, activate super polymerization. You can't respond, so you can't even Dweller them for their turn. So definitely don't put these on the board at the same time. And this kind of circumvents it. It allows you to have Baron as a level 10. Omni Negate. And then obviously the tier lineup 12, pretty standard. I've seen some people cut down on Reinhardt, especially when they're playing Diviner, just because it's another normal summon. But you would obviously rather be normal summoning this all the time because it does start your tier engine and it is a level 4 water for Dweller, so you get the 500 boost as well. Whereas Diviner is something you want to revive off of Elf. After you're able to set up Dweller, you can also send like one of these to mill 5 without being worried about what your opponent mills. And then spells, Instant Fusion, obviously, field spells, and terraforming, super, super good. These cards, again, you can use this as a trident, basically like a quick play pop. If you have one of these guys that shuffle in your graveyard, as well as a tier name, because at any moment in time, these being quick effects, you can banish this to target any Tearlaments monster in your graveyard, shuffle it back, and then trigger Perlorino to pop something. So yeah, this says if a Tearlament monster you control in your graveyard shuffle the deck or the extra deck. Doesn't have to be by fusion summon. It could be any way, including these, or when your opponent responds using their I like to call these humans. My buddy was telling me some of my friends were saying they're humans and robots, but if they have these humans, these Shizu dorks in the graveyard, and they shuffle back in response to your effect, you can also trigger your Pearl Rhino. So fun things to note. One Scream. You could go up on this. This is really, really useful to play around having this, especially because of the fact that having this, you want, like your opponent's having this, you want them to use it as late as possible so that you have these dorks in the graveyard, because you do want to be able to stop their plays before you allow them to mill off Havness. So this allows you to do that, to chain block Havness. For example, chain link 1 Rhino Heart, chain link 2 Scream. They can't respond because Havness does have to respond directly to the monster effect. It's a when, not an if. So this is really useful. And also don't forget that it also makes your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack, which is super, super crucial. Obviously, being paired with Pearl Rhino is a 1k differential on the attack, so that does come up a lot. So guys, don't forget that. And then when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a Tearlament's Trap. So obviously being able to add Celiac, or the other card that you could play is Tearlament's Crime. This is like an Omni negate by discarding a monster while you control the Tearlaments, so you can also search that off of Scream. So it could be bumped up, technically. It's never really good to draw a bunch, but again, if you have Pearl Rhino, you are able to pop this during your turn, or with Baron de Fleur to add Tearlament's Crime, or Tearlament's Celiac. And then 3 Tactics. I think this card is really, really good. I know it was mentioned, I think in my previous video, that when your opponents are playing Visted, for example, if you go like normal summon Rhino Heart, this card, send one of these, activate the effect, they chain Magnemite to banish it, they summon Magnemite, you lose your effect. If you have Tactics, you're able to activate Tactics, steal their Magnemite, make Dark, revive their Magnemite, so you get the effect to search in the end phase, so you equalize their Jerusalem that they're going to search, and then you can link off Dark and the Magnemite that you summon back from their graveyard into Sprint, use Sprint's effect to send Merly, and then basically go into Kick Kalos and have full tier combo. So this card enables that, as well as Jerusalem also does enable that. So if you, same thing, you summon Rhino Heart, you send something, they go Magnemite, banish, they summon, you can actually banish if you have another Dark somewhere in the graveyard, you can banish this, summon this, make Dark. This effect will send their Magnemite to the graveyard. You can use Dark to revive that Magnemite and then do the same exact combo, as well as getting an end phase search. So really cool things to note. And I might actually have to do another video for the combos because this is kind of long. But the other thing to note, cooler interactions, obviously, Gravekeeper's Trap in exchange of the Spirit. This can be placed on the field by Medora, as well as being searched by Keldo. And then later in your combo, you can either try and mill this, or you can actually use Beatrice to set it up if you already have access to Gravekeeper's Trap. This card is obviously super auto win in the mirror match because it shuts down their entire graveyard when you have this Gravekeeper's Trap on the field and Exchange of Spirit in the graveyard. The only problem is that they can still banish the dorks from their field. For example, if they have the foresight that you have this in graveyard, they can go ahead and activate one of these, summon this, and because it's on the field, they can banish these from the field or grave. So they can banish from the field, shuffle back your Exchange of Spirit, and all of a sudden this is turned off. So all their plays are enabled. So just one thing to note, it is obviously a brick. Both of these are pretty bad bricks. I don't know, the format is kind of fast. Maybe you just don't want to see the purple cards. So again, just be wary of that. The other thing is this can be also, like if you have this in graveyard, you can use Kelbeck to set this. When you mill 5 and then you have a trap, you have Exchange of Spirit in the graveyard, you can actually set one of the traps after the Kelbeck resolves. So that's the other effect. So you can technically, if you mill like a whole bunch of cards and you have them under Dweller, you can technically just use this to set this, and then you have that live. And also you can use these dorks to fix your opponent's graveyard because their effects are turned off for the turn. So fun little things to note. Oh, and the other thing, I guess, yeah, obviously, like tips and tricks, try to get one of these on the board as fast as possible or in the graveyard before activating any effects. So ideally as your first action, just because, again, having this, if your opponent responds. So if you're like just going like normal summon Rhino Heart, activate the effect, they chain Havness, and they happen to mill like a name and like a dork, you're already kind of behind because they're guaranteed resolving and adding Kick Hellos to fix their hand before your turn is even played. So obviously if I went first and discarded summon Keldo, and then I normal summon Rhino Heart and they have this, and I don't care what they mill because I have like an added layer of protection to banish from their graveyard. So again, just something to be wary of. Yeah, that's, I think, mostly more or less it. Obviously, Elf gives you like a lot of options in this deck. Being able to summon back Diviner is a quick play as well during their turn. So you can mill 5, or if you happen to have a way to play Intis, you can also do that as well. And then, yeah, Garuda is just really, really powerful with these level 6s because you do get a draw as well after sending it off of Beatrice. And then, obviously, with Diviner being a tuner, you can also send a Herald of Orange Light to make it into level 4, so you can use it combined with the level 6 Garura or the Magnamite to make Baron Flare, which I think is pretty good, especially because there's a chance that people might be playing other cards that stop your board, things like Tactics, things like Mystic Mind, things that kind of like push tempo, and this card being a little hard to negate either of those is kind of relevant. And yeah, I think that's about it. If you guys have any tips and tricks, let me know, or any suggestions for this deck. It's pretty good cookie cutter, but again, I think this deck takes a lot of skill. There's just so many things going on at once, especially in the mirror match. So I would definitely say prioritize like your skill over the actual deck build. Obviously, deck building is important, but knowing how to play and how to play out of things is especially important because these mirror matches do take a long time. There are a lot of games in the OCG that took like one game, took the entire 40 minutes. So just be wary of that. Know when to scoop, know when to use your combos. Just be used to the scenarios. And yeah, that's about it. I'll make some combos in the next video. So definitely subscribe, rate, and comment, and I will see you guys in the next one. Deuces.